Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Rookie Card Collector 123 video. In today's episode, we're going to continue our look at the Negro and Winter League baseball cards that were issued for the all-time Negro League greats. As I mentioned a number of times before, there was never any cards printed of the ball players while they were playing in the U.S. Negro Leagues. So all the cards we're going to look at today are from Latin America, countries such as Cuba, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, Venezuela, and Mexico. So the first player we're going to take a look at today is actually one of the all-time great Negro League pitchers in history, Andy Cooper. Cooper was a left-handed starting pitcher, made his Negro League debut in 1920 with the Detroit Stars. Would spend his first few seasons there, would go on to the Kansas City Monarchs, where he would have his greatest success, both as a individual and also team success, winning multiple Negro League pennants, championships during his time there. So I'm going to give you some more bio information from Cooper. In addition to the two teams I mentioned, he also had brief stints in the Negro League with the Chicago American Giants and the St. Louis Stars. His Negro League career spanned 1920 to 1941, so more than 2 decades. And in addition to his pitching career, the second half of his career, as well as post playing days, he was also a manager in the U.S. Negro Leagues, as well as overseas in Cuba. So Cooper pitched with the Kansas City Monarchs, pitched in the 1936 All-Star Game at the age of 40, so that was toward the end of his career. He was a master at mixing pitches, changing speeds. He had superb control, exceptional and effective array of breaking pitches, including a great curveball, change, slider, and screwball. Um, his Negro League seasons from 1922 to 27, that would have been the peak of his career. His pitching records were 14 and 5, 15 and 8, 12 and 5, 12 and 1, 12 and 8, and 7 and 3. The next two seasons with the Monarchs in 28 and 29, he was 13 and 7 and 13 and 3. And the Monarchs won the Negro National League pennant in 1929. In the winter of 1933 to 34, Cooper joined the U.S. traveling all-star team that went to the Orient over in Asia with Lonnie Goodwin's traveling all-stars. They played in not only Japan, but China and the Philippines as well. When he got back to the U.S., he rejoined the Monarchs. In his first season back, he put up a record of 27 and 8, and that was at the age of almost 40 at that point. So amazing season for Cooper on his way back to the U.S. So Cooper has three cards we're going to take a look at. All three of them are rare, as is the case with most of these Negro League cards that we're going over in the series here. These three are all from Cuba. They're all from 1923 to 24, that Winter League season. And they all picture Cooper in his Habana uniform. So, first one we're going to look at is 1923 to 24 Beacon. Beacon was a Cuban cigar tobacco company, and they had this real photo card of Cooper. His name is printed at the bottom, pictured in a full body pose with the Habana uniform, and one of the most popular Andy Cooper cards out there. Again, these are very scarce. Pop report numbers on these would be under 10. Next, second one is the 1923 to 24 Nacionales. Again, same Winter League season, same Habana affiliation for Cooper there. This one's a horizontal card. And Nacionales was also a tobacco company in Cuba that issued these cards in conjunction with their tobacco products. And the third one from that season with Cooper, it's the exact same image as the Nacionales. This one is the Tomas Gutierrez set. All three of these, all similar, all populations under 10, probably under 5 sometimes even. The Tomas Gutierrez set was issued by a Cuban tobacco company called Diaz Cigarettes. Diaz Cigarettes was more famously known for their 1924 issue in the U.S., which pictured about 100 players, and every one of the 100 was a MLB pitcher. They did not print any everyday player cards for whatever reason that was. So this is the three known Andy Cooper cards during his Negro / Winter League playing days. All three are very expensive in today's market. These are probably approaching 5 figures, and all very tough, all from Cuba. The next player we're going to talk about, this is going to be a brief one because there's only one card, and I unfortunately don't have an image of that card to show. It's so rare. So I'm just going to mention a very brief bio. I'm going to mention the card, and then we'll move on to the next player. So Marceline, who goes by the nickname Chocho Correa, he was a Cuban infielder primarily, played shortstop, second base, and then later in his career a little bit of outfield. He played 10 years in the U.S. Negro Leagues from 1926 to 1936. He began with the Cuban Stars West from 26 to 29. Then he played in the Cuban Stars East in 29 as well. And then the Cuban Stars, the combined team, in 32 and 33, as well as the New York Cubans, 1935 and 1936. So he began his career in 1926 with Tinty Molina's Cuban Stars in the first Negro National League. He batted third in the order, registering averages of 238 and 279 his first 2 years. After moving east in 1929, he hit 317 in the Negro American League while batting cleanup for Alex Pompez's Cuban Stars. And then he had a few more sort of nondescript Negro League seasons. So Chocho Correa, like I said, he had one card that was produced, and it's an impossible rarity for the most part to find one. It's from the 1927 to 28 Mallorquina. It was a Cuban candy company. It was a 100-card set that they put out. In this set, the first 18 cards were professional Cuban ball players at that time, playing in the Winter League, and the other 82 players were Cuban amateur players, primarily that played during the summer there. So the 100-card set, I'm aware of 2 uncut sheets that exist, which include the entire 100 cards. These are very small, tiny square cards, similar to the Bagor Chocolate 1930 U.S. series that included the MLB players like Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and all. So these Mallorquinias, like I said, the populations on these are like 1, 2, 0. That's about it. And I don't have a picture, unfortunately. I'm not going to show you the page in the book for that one. So we're going to move on to the next player that we're going to look at today. And this one is a native Cuban player, Alejandro Crespo. And he only played 2 years in the U.S. Negro Leagues, not because he wasn't good enough, but because his summer ball, instead of playing in the U.S. In the Negro Leagues, he played in Mexico almost every season during the 40s and into the early 1950s. He played 2 years in the U.S., I said, 1940 and 1946. He mainly played left field or other outfield positions. His Negro League time was spent with the New York Cubans in 1940 and 46, both of those seasons. And then he played in the Mexican League, like I said, just about every year during the 40s. He also played at the very end of his career one season in 1955 in the U.S. Minor leagues, professional baseball. So Crespo, big right-handed Cuban power hitter, played only 2 years in the Negro Leagues, like I said. The first year for the New York Cubans as an outfielder, he hit .344, batted cleanup, and earned a trip to the 1940 All-Star game, getting a triple and two at-bats during the contest. 1946, his only other year in the U.S. Negro Leagues, the slugger hit for a .336 average during league play. He was a consistent 300 hitter. He fashioned a career average in Mexico of .361, batting seasons of .332, .331, .316, .311, .293, .311, .346, and .306. In 1943, playing for Torreon in the Mexican League, he led the league in RBIs. His Mexican League career totals include a .321 lifetime average for 9 seasons and a .333 average for 7 years in All-Star competition. Playing in his native land of Cuba for 14 seasons, mostly with Cienfuegos, he compiled a lifetime .277 batting average. He led the league in 1948-49 with a .326 average. So Alejandro Crespo, definitely a major star as a batsman, and not only in Mexico, but in the Cuban Winter League as well, and also the 2 seasons he played in the U.S. Negro Leagues. One of the most accomplished hitters during the 40s and 50s, not to play in Major League Baseball. So Crespo has a ton of cards to look at. He's one of the few players that appears in many issues. He played at a good time during the mid 40s into the early 50s, where there was a number of sets made in Latin America and primarily in Cuba. So we're going to look at all those now in chronological order. So the first one we're going to look at is the Alejandro Crespo, what would be his rookie card. This would be a 1945-46 Caramelo Deportivo. This was a candy company in Cuba. They put these cards out. This was their first year, and they were black and white images surrounded by a white border. And the card number appears inside a baseball in the bottom corner of the card, as you can see there, with a nice image of Crespo that's in his Cienfuegos uniform. These are not as tough to find as some of the others we're going to talk about in a minute. The Caramelo Deportivos, not easy to locate, but they are out there. Okay, the next one we're going to look at, on the other hand, is a extremely tough one to find. This is the next year, so Winter Ball 46-47 in Cuba. This one is called the Almanaque set. And Almanaque was a magazine, sports magazine, and they printed and showed pictures of ball players and printed stories, not only baseball but all the other sports. It's a Cuban Hispanic magazine. So the Almanaque cards were issued or included in the magazine. They were on pages of 4, and they were meant to be cut out and put into a album, as almost all these Cuban cards were intended to do, which is the reason why, if you do find any of them out in the wild, they tend to have lots of condition issues, primarily back damage from being glued into the albums or other scrapbooks. So this Crespo image, also picturing him in his Cienfuegos uniform. This one has green. It's not black and white, but it's got a green cap and a green C on his jersey. And these are in somewhat of a color format, but very rare. Okay, next one we're going to look at on the bottom here. This is a 46-47 Caramelo Deportivo. So this was the second year from that issue. Those were the candy cards, black and white image. Again, inside the baseball has a card number. The back of these have advertising for Caramelo Deportivo, the player's name, and they're in Spanish. Okay, the next one is a Actually, this is a real photo postcard. They're called photos. These are also from 1946-47. And this one pictures Crespo. Not sure what uniform he's wearing there. Probably Cienfuegos again. This one's a portrait shot, a real nice image. And these were postcard backs, typically found blank. And another Cuban Winter League 46-47 Crespo image. Next up, we have another 46-47 Crespo. This one is another Cuban set. This is called Propaganda Montiel. These have yellow or orange borders. The color kind of varies from card to card. Sort of ornate borders, a little fancy, decorative on the surrounding the black and white image. And the back has the Propagandist Montiel advertising, and again in Spanish. These are again scarce, but they're out there. They're findable. The photos postcard, there's probably one or two known. Those are almost impossible to find. Okay, next up we have a 1947 Campo. This is actually the same image as the photos postcard that we just saw on the previous page. So Campo was actually, and you'll notice 1947, it's not a 2-year range like most of the cards we've looked at. That's because this was issued in Mexico, and the players that played in Mexico were typically during the summer league. So basically, Mexico took the place of the U.S. Negro leagues for those players. So they would play there in the summer months and then possibly go to Latin American countries like Cuba to play during the winter. So this is an extremely rare card, 47 Campo from Mexico. They're a square shape. I don't think I've seen one of these in person. Extremely tough to find. Nice image of Crespo. Next up, we've got a different image. This is another Cuban Winter League. This is 48-49. That's the only card from that season that was produced in Latin America. This one pictures Crespo. It's got a black or dark brown border surrounding a real photograph image in the center. And these are El Indio. The name of it's a caramel company or candy company again, kind of like the Deportivos. And these are very rare as well. These might be populations under 5, I would say, and just about everybody. Next to that, we have a card called Acebo y Cia. These are again small square cards. These were put out in 1949-50, also in Cuba. And this one pictures Crespo again in his Cienfuegos jersey. These are also pretty scarce. Occasionally you can find one, but very tough set. Okay, next one we're going to look at. These are, this is the 49-50 Alerta. These are premiums. These are oversized and quite large. They're on sort of a glossy, slick paper stock. And Alerta was a publication, a magazine in Cuba. So this picture's again Crespo in his Cienfuegos uniform. Trying to get rid of the glare here somewhat. The next one is 1949-50 Cartelis. This was another Winter League issue from Cuba, picturing Crespo. I've never come across one of these. These are obviously extremely rare, and I don't know a whole lot about this Cartelis issue, other than it's from 49-50. It was from Cuba, and Crespo's pictured in the Cienfuegos uniform. Okay, next one is another super rare card. This is a 1950 Dominican Republic Alejandro Crespo. These Dominican Republic cards were produced during the 1950s, and then again there was quite a few different series in the 60s. This 1950 issue is cataloged in the standard catalog of vintage baseball cards, and sort of with a incomplete checklist. And there's several players in there. I think Phil Rizzuto is the one that's pictured in the catalog. There's some U.S. guys. There's some far Latin American guys, and Crespo appears in that set. I've never seen this card, and again, extremely rare. Unfortunately, these Dominican Republic cards, rumors have spread over the years that they might be fake. So a lot of collectors just stay away from them and don't want to consider buying them. But I do know for a fact that there are 60s cards, and they are legitimate cards that were issued, especially during the mid 60s, from various Dominican Republic leagues. A lot of U.S. players pictured on them, and these, because they're uncatalogued, the grading companies will not grade them. So that kind of fuels the speculation that maybe they're not real. But I don't think that's the case. I'm sure there is fake ones out there, but that does not mean that all the Dominican Republic cards are fake. Okay, next one we're going to look at is a 1952 to 53. Again, this is a premium from Cuba. This one's called Gente, or maybe Gente. I'm not sure the proper pronunciation. But that one pictures Crespo in a nice image. Again, these are oversized. These are on a thicker paper stock, though. I know there's a mini Minoso in this set. He might be the best ball player in that Gente set. And the last one for Crespo we're going to look at is a 1952 to 53 Victoria. This is one of the few Crespo cards that's in color, picturing him in Habana uniform. The Victorias were one of the last Cuban baseball, professional baseball card series issued. Those again came with an album. And Alejandro Crespo there in a nice batting pose. So that's going to wrap up today's episode. We got to look at a Negro League Baseball Hall of Famer, as well as a ball player that had a ton of cards produced during his playing days, which is quite unusual for any Negro League star. Hopefully you got some good information today. Next time we'll continue our look. We're still in the C's, working alphabetically. In the upcoming episodes, I know we've got, I think next time, one or two Hall of Famers that are going to be included in the show, as well as I think the episode after that. So definitely don't want to miss those. These cards are extremely rare and not that likely that you're going to come across them very often. But if you do, they can be worth a lot of money. And the more educated you are, the more you know about them. It's going to be to your benefit. You might be able to pick something up that somebody else doesn't really realize what they have. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great day, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.